Elementary Science Class 8. Cell, Structure and Functions. The cell. Hey there. So, do you remember that everything around us is either living or non-living?
Yes. And living things do certain basic functions, right?
Exactly. And the basic structural unit that helps carry out those functions is the cell.
Cells. Like the tiny building blocks of life.
That's right. Just like bricks make up a building, cells make up every living organism.
Wow, I didn't know that. How was the cell discovered?
Good question. In 1665, a scientist named Robert Hooke looked at cork under a microscope and saw tiny boxes he called cells.
Those were actually dead cells, right?
Yes, it took another 150 years for scientists to observe living cells with better microscopes.
So, cells are really important for life. Are they all the same?
Not at all. While all organisms are made of cells, they can vary greatly in shape and function.
Like how a hen's egg is a single cell that we can see without a microscope.
Exactly. Each cell is complex and plays a crucial role in the organism's life. Organisms show variety in cell number, shape, and size. Hey, did you know that organisms show a huge variety in cell number, shape, and size?
Really? How do scientists study these living cells?
They use microscopes to magnify objects, and sometimes they use stains to color parts of the cells for better observation.
That sounds fascinating. How many cells are in an organism like a tall tree or an elephant?
The number can run into billions and trillions. For example, the human body has trillions of cells that vary in shapes and sizes.
So, what do we call organisms made of more than one cell?
Those are called multicellular organisms. Even smaller organisms with fewer cells still function perfectly well.
Wow, I didn't know that. How does a single-celled organism like amoeba perform all its functions?
Amoeba captures food, respires, excretes, grows, and reproduces all by itself, even though it's just one cell.
That's amazing. What about the shape of cells?
Amoeba has an irregular shape and can change its form. These projections are called pseudopodia.
And what about human cells? Do they have a specific shape?
Yes, different cells like blood, muscle, and nerve cells have distinct shapes that relate to their specific functions.
What about the size of these cells?
Cell sizes can vary greatly, from as small as a millionth of a meter to a few centimeters. Most are microscopic and need magnification to see.
That's incredible. So, the smallest cells are in bacteria, right?
Exactly. They can be as small as 0.1 to 0.5 micrometers. Cell structure and function. Have you ever thought about how living organisms are made up of cells?
Yes. I learned that cells are the basic structural units of life. It's fascinating.
Exactly. Each organ in a living organism is made up of tissues, and tissues are made of cells.
So, what are the main parts of a cell?
The main components are the cell membrane, cytoplasm, and nucleus. The membrane keeps everything together.
And what's the role of the cell membrane?
It separates the cell from its surroundings and controls what goes in and out. It's porous.
What about plant cells? Are they different from animal cells?
Yes, plant cells have an extra layer called the cell wall for protection, while animal cells don't.
How can we see these cells?
You can prepare a slide using an onion peel. It's a simple way to observe the cell structure under a microscope.
And what about animal cells? Can we see those too?
Absolutely. You can scrape the inside of your cheek and prepare a slide with that sample to observe animal cells. Cytoplasm is that jelly-like substance found between the cell membrane and the nucleus.
Yeah, I've read that it contains various organelles like mitochondria and ribosomes. That's really cool.
Exactly. And the nucleus is super important too. It's usually spherical and located at the center of the cell.
Right. I remember it can be stained to see it better under a microscope. What separates it from the cytoplasm?
Good question. It's separated by the nuclear membrane, which is porous and allows materials to move in and out.
And inside the nucleus, there's something called the nucleus, right? It helps with ribosome production.
Yes. Plus, the nucleus contains chromosomes that carry genes, which are crucial for inheritance.
I find it fascinating that chromosomes are only visible when the cell divides.
Absolutely. The entire content of a living cell is known as protoplasm, which includes both the cytoplasm and the nucleus.
Speaking of cytoplasm, I noticed some blank-looking structures in onion cells. What are those?
Those are vacuoles. They can be large in plant cells and much smaller in animal cells.
Interesting. And what about those colorful bodies in Tradescantia leaf cells?
Those are plastids. Some contain chlorophyll, which gives leaves their green color and is essential for photosynthesis.